Welcome to show 177. We are joined by hip hop legend
DJ Fingers from the Syndicate. That's right.
Yeah.
In the shop, you couldn't squeeze us all into the shed.
Yeah,
welcome. We've already done the interview, but you're going to see it in about 3 records' time. Some cracking stories of what happened back in the day and what's happening in the future as well.
Yeah.
So, we're going to start from way back on probably your first release.
First official release.
Yeah. Plus you cutting up Sly and the Family Stone to great effect. And this was recorded in the garage in Milton Keynes, is that right? Cool. Yeah, brilliant stuff on Bad Records. We're going to pretty much not be playing a break of the week or anything like that this week. We're just going to be playing DJ Fingers related releases. And amazing.
Why not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally. So next up, how long after this one did this come out?
Probably within a year.
Within a year. Because they'd snazzed up the font a little bit for this one, didn't they? Okay, cool. Nice. So I'm toying which one to actually play at this, but let's play one from this. This is so this was live on Capital Radio, was it?
Yeah, when Westwood first moved to Capital, I think
right.
Untouchable, the mic no one can ever copy. Producing rhymes, so put you like a hobby. Providing joy, I'm known as a disciple, but I'm the one that started the Bible, because just like faith, I'll never stop growing. I'm on your
I will say this, we're actually an open shop today as well, so there's someone over there digging through the hip hop.
Yeah, just in case you don't know where it is, it's just off the South Howe Piccadilly line station. So on the Piccadilly line, South Howe Market.
Exactly.
Lovely shop.
Indeed.
Push the sherry's out above you if you come down.
That's right. I've got some minions.
And obviously there's all celebrities in the house as well.
They just pile through.
Making us look bad, he's coming in a nice jacket.
And I'm still wearing the sort of like club ride at a car boot sale this morning as his bed. Excellent. So then, between this and this, there's quite a few years, isn't there? So, when was this? This was 1990. 88, so 2 years. 2 years we're going to go forward, and we're going to listen to a bit of Syndicate on Virgin before going to a blinding interview. Yeah, I snapped this up as soon as it came out. This is my second copy because this one's from the Music and Video Exchange. So I've got another one at home as well. But yeah, brilliant. I love this. Obviously this was the B-side really, wasn't it? But I love that Live the Life was the sort of main track on this. And how well did that do?
To be honest, I'm not really sure.
Really?
Yeah. Honestly, it sounds strange.
Because
there's still a lot of contention with the Live the Life track.
Right.
Prodigy always sampled the break.
Yeah.
And then they went on to sample the vocal part, We Are the Ruffles.
Right, yeah.
We never sanctioned it, we never agreed it, so...
Liam?
Yeah. It's never been sorted.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well we won't get an apology in here then.
The band's from the shop.
Still,
you know what, I suppose in some ways it's kind of what hip hop is, isn't it?
They've acknowledged it, but we never agreed terms or anything. So, that would probably bump up what we could have made.
Yeah, but I mean, I remember when this came out, it was a big tune. You know what I mean? And it was also one of those tracks that you could get in our price and not just Groove Records or whatever else. You know what I mean? So
for me, I think that epitomises crazy melody.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go to the interview, shall we? So. Welcome, Mr. DJ Fingers, to the shop. Usually we film in the shed, but it's a bit cramped, and so we thought we'd do it here now. Very informal. What we're going to start with is what got you into music in the first place, really.
Okay. I think it's probably being really young. I can remember like we had obviously like my parents playing records on the record player, and one thing in particular, like we lived in a quite a big house in Tottenham, and we couldn't afford to probably, you know, the mortgage was probably pretty high, so we rented out rooms, and there was a lady called Vicky Winters. She passed away now, and her boyfriend, at that time she probably was, you know, he was a Rasta and her boyfriend. And I remember it was probably shows like Tony Williams and David Rodigan, and I remember him recording and pausing stuff, and this was like in the late 70s, and pausing, taking out the DJ talking and just having the
kind of like
musical elements.
What I did to the Mike Allen tapes.
That made me want to do that, because I was like probably 6. Seeing that, and that had made an impression on me, and I thought that's what I want to do. I want to operate and do that, and it was more the manipulation that intrigued me, and you know, on the tape cassette. So within maybe a year, my dad had bought a newer hi-fi, and I started dabbling with that. And ironically, the music that my family, because my who I call my dad is actually my stepfather. He's from Antigua. My mother's from Jamaica. My mother's 80 in February. But the music that my mother played, they never played reggae. And lately I've asked my mum about ska and all that, because she had a bit of ska in the house, Prince Bus and all that. But she said that stuff came out while she was already here. So the music that they had, you know, the obvious Gin Reeves, country and western.
A lot of country.
Yeah, a lot of rock and roll. And the music that they never had in the house, because I think even my school friends, their parents seemed to be much younger than mine. So there wasn't reggae in the house, but everything, you know, a lot of Stax, a lot of Atlantic, a lot of gospel, rock and roll, and a lot of like weird stuff, like just what you might call middle of the road, or you know, like
plenty of that around in the 60s, I'd have thought.
So, but the stuff that weirdly that I love more than anything now is that Stack stuff. You know, even the stuff that maybe Wu-Tang sort of made an impression on. Is the sort of stuff my dad was playing a lot of Al Green, Willie Mitchell, and he was playing a lot of Sam Cooke. And now, if you was to ask me, I'd say to you Al Green all day. Al Green, Willie Mitchell, and Sam Cooke. But it's because of my dad playing that stuff in the house.
But strangely, that isn't the sort of stuff that people were sampling in the early 80s, or even
No, it's true. And
how did you sort of like start sort of getting immersed into the sort of hip hop culture? Because obviously you're an elder statesman in regards to the UK hip hop scene. So when did it start? Sort of, you know, when did you start sort of like getting into it and realising something was going on and that you could be a part of it?
Yeah, I think originally, like, we, like, from the manipulating with the cassettes, I sort of listened to a lot of pirate radio, and realising that even though these guys are out there, like your masterminds, like Herbie, Froggy, you know, this was a time when I was probably about to take my exams, but I messed up badly in all my exams, because I was just listening to pirate radio, like from Wednesday, Horizon, you'd be tuning in, and then Invicta, Wednesday night masterminds. Herbie, people like Herbie and Froggy, they were had an influence where they were known, but me and my friend, I was telling you, that became mixed masters. We kind of were, if you say amateur, because we weren't known, so we were just locally doing our thing, and working out a way that we could mix with the few records that we could acquire.
And obviously Mastermind and those guys were sort of like already mixing the electro albums, is this around that sort of time?
Yeah, we at the time, like, hip hop weren't a word that was being used, and like in my school in Tottenham, White Hart Lane, Somerset, it's like one of the oldest schools. There's a boys' school in Tottenham called Somerset Boys' School. It got knocked down kind of dodgily because it should be a listed building, but that school was quite a rough school in Tottenham, and if you weren't into reggae, because like people, you could say it was, you know, in that period there was a lot of racism, so people wanted to keep their identity or West Indian culture. They gravitated towards the patois and the reggae, but if you weren't in, and this, like I said, this generation, parents were probably younger than my parents, so the music, if you weren't listening to reggae, you were considered like a soul boy. But I think the group that banded together in school that were considered listening to all the music, if you were to look back at the music we were listening to, it probably would be considered disco, boogie and electro.
Sure.
And even new what do you call it?
New romantic.
Yeah, or new generation. Yeah, and we did like a lot of the you know, even the
Gary
beat,
Newman.
yeah, and the go beat records,
Sure.
specials, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
They were sort of, you probably could say they were like guilty pleasures before the word existed.
But I suppose also you're young, so you can't help but be hearing what's on top of the pops and stuff like that, and that's going to be what you like as well as what your parents or what your peers at school or whatever like.
You know, Shalimar, all that sort of stuff as well.
Who doesn't like Shalimar?
Whatever. So even though we didn't really think that we were into a specific genre, you were just labelled soul boys at that time. If you went into reggae, oh, you're a soul boy, but we knew that it was bigger.
And was it a gradual sort of process that it became totally hip hop, you know, or was there already a scene that was going on that was like a hip hop scene, or were you very much? Because at the time there was soul, there was reggae, there was the charts, there was all of this stuff that was going on. How did it sort of like define?
For me personally, I mean, in my school, there was a few people that went on to be known, and if you're talking about hip hop specifically, at that time, maybe, I don't know, between 82 and 80, we'll say 83, 84, I think like the scene was primarily made up of people that were into dancing. Sure. So they were body poppers or break dancers, and I knew very, very early on that I weren't cut out.
You weren't any good at that.
Yeah, I wasn't. Even in school, like, you know, I played football, but I was in the B team. We had like a C team, a D team. Right. But I kind of played football, but I was more like a defender, so I was just waiting around for the ball.
You weren't a wizard on the
wing. Yeah. And
that's why they call you fingers, not toes.
But so the scene was like, to me, was like breakdancers and like people like Courtney Buchanan, Darnell. We went on, and we had a lot of other people. There's a guy, Richard Aradigby. I'm not sure what his breaking name was, but a lot of these guys, they were known. They'd go down to Covent and they were known. And me and my friend Wizzy D, we were like born on the same day and we had the same interest, and we became mix masters. We basically were just doing our thing, and we were like just giving like tapes, you know, in school and playing them in the breaks, but we didn't go down to places like Covent Garden or Charing Cross, because it was like, okay, our mates dance and they might even do it locally, but it's like the time that we'd spend watching them dancing, and they'd be playing their own electro stuff, mixes while they're dancing. We could be practicing, so that's what we ended up doing. We'd be practicing at home, and it was only after Wild Style came out, and maybe it was the premiere at ICA.
Sure.
I know there was a screening there. These same guys like Richard Aradigby, Carlton, they'll knock on our door and they'll say to us, actually, you're part of this scene. This scene is bigger than us. And they said, you're actually part of it, and what you're doing is actually what...
So when Wild Style came out, obviously there'd been like Malcolm McLaren and Sugar Hill Gang and stuff, but when Wild Style came out, it was like a ready packaged thing that was given to the UK, and then people realised. Yeah. Would that have been the defining moment when you
were accepted? Yeah, I think people understood what we were doing more, and I think that was a turning point for me and Michael Braxton. We call him Perm Braxton now, but at that time he called himself Wizzy D. He was, and we went under the name Mix Masters. We knew then that we wanted to be like DJs for MCs that impacted on us.
And when did the MCs come about? How did you get involved?
When I remember going to a YTS, like when I left school, I applied for lots of jobs, and I knew already I wanted to be like a sound engineer, so I wrote off to loads of like recording studios and just try and get jobs as a T-boy. I didn't get any comeback, and then I signed up to do a YTS in like just microelectronics, and from doing that, I met people on the course that were everywhere. Everyone was breaking everywhere. So the top breakers, there was a guy called Mark Anderson, and he broke for, he was famous for doing the Turtle. Right. But he broke for a group called Breakazoids, and they were so good that I think they were touring with some of the breakers that were in Flashdance, and they were in Europe. Came back and he said, I've heard about you. And at that time, Westwood was promoting Imperial Mixer quite a lot on his pirate station. And when we analysed what Imperial was doing, it just seems to be like a sort of a reworking of DST. Like he was famously cutting up Rocket and Wildstar.
Good times.
Yeah, and we kind of thought, so this Mark Anderson challenged us, says, "Oh, do you lot think that you can do better than that?" And he said, "Well, we can do an alternative, but obviously we probably said something a bit more cheeky than that at the time."
Being the young whippersnapper that you were.
So he brought us down to Spats.
Right.
And we'd heard about Spats, but we still didn't have an interest to go because we thought it was more for dancers. So when we went there and we saw Family Quest, Sergeant Rock, we were like, yeah, this is what we want to be doing. So we knew that was a defining moment. And within a couple of months, Westwood had, that day we met him, he invited us to do quite a few things.
Right.
And something that I don't know if it's apt for me to say it now, but something that I personally have to say is that I think that Tim Westwood gets a lot of slack. But for me,
I think he gets a lot of slack because he's almost like a spitting image puppet of himself.
Yeah, but for me, he's kept the faith.
Yeah.
And anything that Westwood has
Brad's been on holiday with him in Ibiza.
Wow. Anything that I've gained from him, I haven't really asked him for it, and he's offered out, from bad meaning good to having taken over Spats.
Yeah.
I've not asked him for it, and he's willingly, said, I think you lot should do this.
Yeah.
I'd like you to do that. And I think for what he does, even in the early days, giving him mixtapes and him playing it on the radio, I think he hasn't really, I think he's kept the faith in what he does, and because he's elevated to another level.
I think most people only know him from what he's been like over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So, you've got a lot of younger people that only know him.
And in fairness to that, I haven't listened to him since Capital Radio.
No.
I haven't listened since he had been on Radio 1. I haven't really analysed.
Going back
to
Spats and the first time. So, did you battle the Imperial Mixers?
No, I wouldn't say it was a battle, because at that time Imperial Mixers was just Imperial, and you had a guy who I think became part of Boogie Bunch, and then you had Cutmaster Swift. But Swift was a very good breakdancer, and he wasn't sure.
Still is.
Yeah, he wasn't sure where. I'm not surprised. He wasn't sure where he wanted to go, and at that time, people would be saying, you can't do two things, you have to be this or that.
Right.
So I think in the end he kind of thought, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go with the DJing.
Right.
But I think by the time Swift became like really defined, and I always thought he was a nice DJ, I think by that time Imperial himself had pulled away from, I don't know why, pulled away from DJing, and Swift became just Cutmaster Swift.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about Spats. Really, obviously you started sort of playing there. How long did you play there for?
I can't think how long was the period between going to Spats in '84. Then Westwood would have done that big jam. I think after the rap competition that he had done, and around that time, because I think he had an incident at Spats, and I don't know if that was the reason why, but there was an incident where a starter pistol was put to his chest. I don't know if I can say who had done it at the time, but
we can cut it out, but tell us anyway.
But yeah, I think I remember there was a competition, and Westwood. A rap competition that he did at WAG, and he always had the breakdance competitions, and there was a guy called Little Wiz, and Duke was quite a nice breakdancer at that time. He called himself Duke Booty then. So MC Duke was
right. Okay.
So he was dancing, and I think and maybe Swift entered the competition as well. But Westwood, the way Westwood let the crowd decide who won, I think he wasn't really favouring Duke, so he was like, let's give it up for Wiz, Little Wiz, and then he was like, and give it up for Cutmaster Swift, and let's give it up for Duke Booty. So it's like, and I think Duke felt a bit ridiculed at that, so I think he came, maybe a week later he came to Spats and put a pistol to Westwood.
Really?
Yeah,
to his
fantastic. Side. I think that really like shook Westwood up.
Right.
And I think
he wasn't in the frame for shooting Westwood all those years later, was he?
But they're very, very good. I'm sure they're very good friends.
I'm sure, yeah.
But they I I think could have made him decide that he wanted to move away. And he was starting to do what's it called, like the bigger things like Electric Ballroom with Run DMC.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not sure if Slick Ricky had done that as well, W Fresh. There's a few little things that were happening. And so I think, and then the WAG thing, the WAG rap competition. So he said he's going to pull away from Spats, and he said, look, I'd like you guys to take it over. So I can't really think how long the period was from knowing him. Right. There were so much things that he was inviting us to do.
And how did it feel when you took it over? Because that's quite a big obligation to take on a...
I think when we decided that we wanted to do it, we knew straight away that we would just speak to Family Quest. And ironically, I grew up in Tottenham, and Harry, all of Family Quest lived in Islington, North London. So it's like South gets a lot of acknowledgement and attention.
I wanted to bring this up later, actually. Yeah,
and we've never really been on that north-south thing because we've always had friends everywhere. I mean, I've lived in West London for like nearly 20 years. But
I always thought you were West London. I always thought you were like White City, Shepherd's Bush.
Yeah. No, it's only since about 17 years. As old as my son is, I've moved to Shepherd's Bush. But I slowly moved further and further from Tottenham into West, and then just decided there was like a little private school, like a community school that was in Shepherd's Bush, and I thought, I want my daughter at the right age. She's like 22, coming up to 22 now, but she was 4, and we thought, okay, maybe that's the best thing to do to be there. But the Family Quest were in the Holloway area, right? So we used to.
And they were obviously, quite instrumental in being sort of like on, UK Fresh 86 and sort of like quite high up in the scene. I mean, so were they playing at Spats with you, obviously?
Yeah, as soon as we got to see them at Spats with Westwood's gigs, and Westwood would give us a little half an hour, like, go on. And we seemed to have a really good rapport with them. You had people like, I remember Dizzy Heights and other MCs. I don't ever recall City Limits jumping on the mic with the DJ, but the Dizzy Heights didn't really like it, but Family Quest and Cool Cash, Sergeant Rock, they really took to it. So we basically just rapport with them.
Sure.
And I think being that they were from the same North London area really made it easy for us. We travelled back together, and we ended up doing a lot of youth centre stuff around that time with them. And then we just knew that, we wanted to be together. And then we were fortunate they invited us to play, to cut on Dancing in That Space that they had made.
Yeah, of course. And because they were pretty early on.
Yeah. That was quite, and that experience was quite early when we came out of just being known, in local, and then breaking into that.
Sure.
Into that scene.
And when did it sort of break into a bigger scene? Because obviously Family Quest and Imperial Mixers, all those guys are very sort of first generation, I guess yourself included. When did it, to you, sort of when did you realise that it was becoming something a little bit bigger and obviously changing a little bit with other sort of crews sort of coming about and coming up? Obviously, Covent Garden was still going on, but obviously with the sort of breakdancing sort of dying away and stuff like that.
That's a good question. I think, like from what we were looking at earlier in the book, I reckon that around the time of the London Posse, the Bad Meaning Good that Westwood made, I think that's I think that was a point when we became aware that you could say music alive. And, around that time, you sort of started seeing a few UK rap records, and we were familiar with the people that were making the records, and we thought, okay, that's interesting, because we never knew that these guys were performers, but they were slowly making records. And I remember with Crazy Noddy, we were starting, I remember we would just meet up at lunchtimes, and we'd walk through Covent in the West, and we'd see someone like Business, and we'd all be talking, and we'd be saying like, actually you can see where things are going, and we could see like, when I think it would probably be around the time Schoolie D first come out. And
so we're talking about 86? 85, 86?
Yeah, probably around 86, going on to 87. We were 86, and we were saying that we can see that everyone, it's going to happen for everybody. And that's more the commodity, not that the live performance thing. It was more like artists being signed and putting out records, which to me was a different thing, but it was still something that we were aspiring to.
Of course. So how did you get involved with the first sort of like recording?
In
Milton Keynes.
Like I said, my first actual original one was being that experience with Family Quest, and then we wanted to continue doing stuff like that, and even as mix masters, prior to Spats, we knew we wanted to do production, because before we even got put on, we were listening to people like, making comparisons with people like John Roby, Arthur Baker, and even some of the productions, like even the boogie stuff like New York Sky and Brass Construction, Randy Muller, and we were listening to stuff, that were like had an impact, just the different sort of sounds, and we always wanted to go in that direction. So before I understood production, I always thought, I want to be a sound engineer.
Sure.
But,
how did you and obviously Crazy Noddy and Lynn get together in the first place? Were you from the same sort of area as well?
Noddy, that's what I was going to say about this all north-south thing. Noddy's from Norwood, and we did a jam in Norwood, in that area. I can't remember what the school is called, and Noddy was on the bill, and everyone was like, "Who's this Crazy Noddy guy?" And we got talking to him, and how we saw him deal with the crowd, and we thought, we'd like to work with this guy. And we just got on, and around that time it was a turning point, because I became like a bit frustrated not doing enough production work with Family Quest. I was always doing live stuff with them. We were always going out and doing like house parties and doing community centres, and the type of thing that you saw me doing the remix at Bushy, we were doing that, and I kind of felt like I don't feel fulfilled enough, so I always was like, I want to get more into the production. So Noddy had the same vision, so that's how we decided to, what we decided to call the syndicate sort of was born. And Lynn, his brother, was like my best friend in school.
Right.
And Lyndon was a younger brother, and he just was always around us and followed us everywhere, and just encouraged him to get into MCing.
So how did you first get to go to
Milton Keynes? Basically, what happened was, I remember around the time that we're talking, like of Spats and like first coming out of even being able to leave the house around 17, and I remember going to places like what we called Camden Palace then, which is Coco, is it now?
Yeah.
And I remember seeing Colin Faber. He sadly just passed away. He was buried like 2 days ago.
Shit, I didn't realise that.
His funeral was, I think it was on Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah. So I remember Eddie Richards and Colin playing there, and the music seemed a bit like the Wilson Dodgers. It was a lot of that stuff, which was to me a bit frustrating to hear. And but it was like I was out just looking at people getting down to a big sound.
Yeah.
And I'm lost now on the question. Sorry.
No, because
how I got to know Eddie Richards.
Yeah.
So there was a guy called Andy Shaft. He did the door at African Centre, Soul to Soul on Sunday, and he came to Spats with Kid Bachelor, and they said they're looking for a DJ to go to Paris, and it was a few of us that were in the reckoning, and somehow I managed to be asked.
Right.
And I said to them, I won't go unless I can bring MCs. So I said, I have to go with Noddy and Cool Cash. And from that experience with Andy Shaft, meeting him, and then him understanding more what we were about, he introduced us to Eddie Richards. And Eddie Richards already had Mr. C.
Right.
And the idea for this EP was going to happen, but he said, well, he wasn't really on the idea of it. I don't think he was really won over. But when we came,
because it's totally different from everything else that's on the EP.
When we came and delivered it to him in the studio, he was like, the only thing that frustrates us is that the production wasn't as raw The hi-hat.
But you know what though?
Hi-hat,
but at the time, you know when this came out,
there were rougher demos that Westwood had played that was just a raw break. But
on vinyl, I mean, this is actually it's cut up breaks with MCs.
Yeah.
What more do you want? And that wasn't really hitting vinyl,
Yeah.
except for possibly the Wild Style soundtrack. You know what I mean? Years before, but in the UK, everything was still fairly drum machine driven, and a few sort of samples plopped over the top. So it was definitely still one of my favourites.
Thank you.
But,
Until Jungle Brothers came a year later.
I always loved my UK stuff. But, yeah, obviously the Jungle Brothers came in there. Showed the Brits how to do a bit. But yeah, I mean it's fantastic. And from being on this, obviously you did the other one as well.
Yeah.
Which was I think a year later.
Yeah, by the time that came out and Bad Meaning Good came out, we started going to Paris on a weekly, and a lot of it was the same thing. There was a transition of the breakers in Paris that were breaking away from, like, Paris City Breakers became Assassin, the graffiti artists as well. They were breaking away from the dancing and they were getting more into, some people say, it's been documented that they'll say like, we were bringing a lot of the Public Enemy and a lot of that sort of, stuff that Westwood was popularising.
Sure.
We had a little elements of the break stuff.
Yeah.
But they were getting more into the dancing, the more sort of,
Sure.
The, what do you call that? I can't remember what we used to call them dances.
Oh, like doing the WAP and
all
of that sort of stuff.
It was kind of getting more into that stuff, and so that's sorry.
That's all right.
That scene,
But obviously at the same time, Bad Meaning Good.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
It's the same thing like I was saying to you about Westwood.
Yeah.
Like Westwood already, maybe he had stopped doing a Saturday lunchtime gig that he might have been doing at WAG or Electrics. And the Spats thing probably was nearly dying or had died. Because I think by the time, after a while, I was sort of tiring of the Spats thing because we were doing less breaks and music, and the rap music was slowly coming in. Because I just remember there was a few rap records, Lardy Dardy, and obviously the early electro, sort of Fresh and stuff, variation and stuff like that we loved playing. But it was becoming more, there was more and more rap stuff coming through, and I used to probably work in CNA every other Saturday.
Oxford Street.
Yeah, around the same time. So I'd walk
Everyone
down.
coming in and getting their ski jackets.
I'd walk down. I'd walk down and I'd be like, I'm not really. I sort of, it wasn't the same because we was doing more of a live thing, like people like Fresh Ski and other MCs, Cash, they'd turn up and we'd rock. Emix was becoming more of a DJ at Spats as well, and I think it just sort of was, the break dancers weren't really there as much, and you could have one week where it was really big and then another week, so it all culminated in the same period. By the time Westwood did Bad Meaning Good, I think Spats had probably died. Right,
okay. And that was about 88, was it?
Spats was 87.
No, I mean Bad Meaning Good, I think was it aired, I think.
I'm not
87
sure.
or 88?
I think it was 87. No. I know there's a write-up in there somewhere. Yeah.
I just want to say, people, that I'd love this book.
Yeah, August 5th, but it doesn't say the year.
Right.
Yeah, August the 5th.
So in regards to Bad Meaning Good, I mean,
I reckon it was 87.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But it was amazing because it was probably the first time people outside of London got to see what was going on.
I never really knew, but because I've started to be told that in the last 15 years.
Of course,
I meet people and people will say. I never really knew at the time because as quick as we did, it had to have been 86, 87, because as quick as we did Bad Meaning Good, before it was even aired, we started to go to Paris.
Right.
And then people in Paris later on were saying, they were aware of it.
Right.
People,
some
I learned that
dusty
later on.
videotapes that get passed around the globe.
I'd learned that later on.
Hip hop porn almost, isn't it? But I mean, in regards to Bad Meaning Good, I remember sort of like seeing it at the time, and sort of obviously there's the famous scene of you in your bedroom cutting up Tom Jones and Gary Newman, is it, films?
Yeah.
And
Jimi Hendrix.
And Jimi Hendrix, but effortlessly, and it was just fantastic. And everything else on that was great as well. Obviously, London Posse, you know, beatboxing in the back of the car and all that sort of stuff.
A Sierra.
In the Sierra, that's right, yeah. But
Westwood like a cab driver.
Yeah. But so I mean, did that have an automatic impact on what you were doing as the syndicate at the time? Because it can't have been that long after that you got signed to, was it Virgin?
It was a bit after.
Was it a bit? Or was it
because like when I first met Noddy and before we made Syndicates Kick In, we already, because Noddy grew up around the sound systems. Like he said, he used to follow Saxon.
Right.
Like in Tottenham, I was already like with Twilight, who became Twilight Firm. We already were like a soul sound. And then another thing as well, Cool Cash C, his older brother Gary. They were all part of Soul Incorporated, which was like a sister sound to Mastermind.
Right.
And they used to play with the reggae sounds, so they'd play the soul selection so the women would be attracted to. And Cash had been doing that stuff, ironically, since like probably '79. He didn't realise what he was doing by imitating people like Bootsy and all that, just like doing wordsmith stuff over the boogie stuff, boogie and stuff that they were playing. And basically, yeah, the whole thing with the question you were asking me, sorry.
I think it was from
from the
Bad
Virgin
Meaning
thing.
Yeah.
It the idea of us wanting to justify wanting a label like Virgin to sign us, it started around the time of Bad Meaning Good, because me and Noddy, we always spoke about why is it that, you know, because some of the early records we liked, like Force MDs, and reading about this stuff in like Rap Attack, but like David Tupin, like liking stuff like Nunk, like Walk Nine, these groups that were mixing, you knew they were coming from maybe they come from a earlier tradition, but they were incorporating rap and soul in and singing. And we always thought, well, we looked at what we did, because I always saw myself as a selector for MCs, and the only other reference you had was the reggae scene, and at that time it wasn't dancehall. No one mentioned the word dancehall. It was like, play your version and you mix it down with one turntable.
Right.
So I used to walk around Tottenham carrying 2 Technics turntables no one would bother you, because they would be like, why you? They would just be intrigued, why you got 2 turntables? Because they always used one at that time. Yeah. And like you said, the MC would have to talk in between the breaks and then flip it and they'd be mixing it down. And basically, I knew at that stage already that what I was doing as a DJ was extending that with 2 turntables, but it's the same sensibility.
Of course.
Just I want to mix for the MC and have that marriage.
Sure.
So it's like we looked at the reggae sounds that we were hearing, the tapes, and we were like, well, they got sing J's, they got people that are singing over this stuff. Why can't? And we grew up listening to these great records, you know, like soul records, and we thought, well, yeah, why can't you have that? And early stuff like Mantronics, what he was doing, you know, and some of the remixes that he was doing for other artists, Nocera, Hungry for Your Love, and all these sort of like, there was like these soul hip hop sort of. And I hate this word, because I look at hip hop as like not genre specific. It's a melting pot of music. It is exactly what you do with hip hop, like what you were playing me in your car, what you've done with your mixtape. That is hip hop. Yeah, hip hop is defined. It's you're taking something and making it something else. You make it funky. It isn't. Yeah. Well, we try. Yeah.
It's official DJ Fingers. It's called us hip hop.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I've got my fat laces on today. So
it's not necessarily like, you know, like because it's rap and it's hip hop.
So, from Bad Meaning Good being around sort of 87, 88 to, would it have been about 1990 that you guys were at Virgin?
By the time 1990 came, we'd signed.
Oh, you had? But there's a couple of, as you were
between 86, 87, we already knew that we wanted to bring vocal based into live performance.
Sure.
And by that time we were putting more emphasis on even getting into the studio.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time travelling to Milton Keynes,
right,
by myself and making ideas with Eddie.
Sure.
And then we only were doing maybe the Swiss cottage jams that we were doing to keep the live thing going, and that was our vision, to always want to record live sessions.
So how was it?
Like,
I mean, obviously in 87, 88, 89,
Yeah.
there was a lot of rap records being made, UK rap records, you
Yeah.
know, from the likes of people, you know, like
yeah,
Hijack, Duke,
Yeah.
you know, Overlord X and all of these guys. And there was a bit between this and when you sort of like started putting out your other stuff. What was going on in between?
So like Linny Lynn, who became part of Syndicate, we were guiding them. Like Don Ramp, who became the other DJ producer in Syndicate, we were very close together. We were at a stage where we weren't quite sure where we were going. Once a month, maybe me and Noddy might go places like Milan and do like quite a lot of performance over a weekend, and then but the production thing was still embedded, but we were guiding Linny Lynn and we were doing little bits of production. I think my family life was changing a bit. I sort of wasn't getting on with my dad. I moved out, so it was a lot of survival things, but the creative stuff was still what was holding me together.
Linchpin.
Yeah, but we had the vision, but we knew it was going to happen, but we wasn't really asking or banging on any doors. It was a case of Eddie Richards, he ran Bad Records. We were supposed to put out an album, and around that time we went to New York via Noddy going with a friend of She Rockers. And we got offered a deal by B-Boy Records, so we had that in our bag. We were like, okay, this is going to happen, but we had to finalise a deal with Morgan Khan. So Morgan Khan knew of us from Swiss Cottage Jams, but he was a bit bemused, like, how have you managed to get this deal? So in the end, I think that transition point with B-Boy Records was changing as well.
Sure.
They had a 5-year licensing deal with.
Did you do anything? Did you record anything with them?
We had stuff ready to go actually,
Right.
but for whatever reason, we never
I think
got
it would
back
have been
to New York. Yeah, but we had that. It was interesting because we were like walking around like in our heads being a bit smug, knowing that no one knows this, and we couldn't even tell bad,
right.
you know. And for about half a year, we were like not sure what was happening. And then it was strange because Soul to Soul, before they had the second hit, not Fair Play.
What, Keep On Moving?
Yeah, it would have been the first single they had out before Keep On Moving.
Right.
Yeah, they Back to Life, Keep On Moving. So yeah, between Fair Play and Keep On Moving, because I even said to Rodney P last week, I said to him, oh, I remember like when we were talking with Soul to Soul about going to Japan and maybe Africa, and they had gone, they had just gone, and we were about to go, and we, like, even these pictures that we took, this is like proof of it, these pictures that we took, me and Noddy took in Soul to Souls.
Right.
These two pictures.
Wow. Let's hold them up.
So you can see them.
Can you see them?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
we're taking them pictures has a sort of what you can call it. Yeah, has their bio to help promote us and say, okay, Syndicate are going to come, because me and Noddy, we were probably just known, we think at that time, more as performers more than respected for recordings.
Yeah.
And so Soul to Soul were like, yeah, you've got to come. And then ironically, they had a hit, and it's like it wasn't gonna happen. And we were going places and they were playing, and we'd be hanging out, and then he started talking about us in magazine articles that he was going to sign us to a label. But by then we had through Eddie Richards, Bad Records, we were no longer able to go to Milton Keynes because he had a hit with a tune that he called Acid Man.
Right.
And he was touring the world, and he was like, okay, Mr. C knows this guy called Ron Tom, who's got a studio in Kentish Town. You can go there and record all your ideas for this album that should have come out already, and then we'll move forward from there. But what happened was Ron Tom heard the stuff that we were doing. We met Luis Francis, who became the soul singer for Syndicate. Spiky T already had done stuff with Demon Boys or Twilight Firm, but we always spoke about doing stuff, so we did an amalgamation together. So all these ideas, like around early 89, around March 89 onwards to the end of the year, we'd quickly recorded quite a lot of things like Live the Life, Tell Me Why and Slow Down. They were written for Louise as a solo singer in the studio.
Right.
But by the time we built up a big collection of product, we spoke to her and we all decided that it seems natural for us all to come together, because that was always our vision, to have a group where even Syndicate could just be the name, like, so the founders could just sit back and we've got other people that are pushing the brand. And Louise was down with what we wanted to do. And then by the time Virgin got whiff of what we were doing, it was the second wind, because Ron Tom had gone to, by then Ron Tom didn't really want Eddie to have any dibs on what we were doing. And Ron Tom he'd gone to Mick Clark at Virgin, but at 10 Records, but Mick Clark, who signed Soul to Soul, it didn't seem like it was going to happen. And Tim Reeves, who signed, who went from being the A&R with the assistant Mick Clark, went to Virgin. But by the time we signed to Virgin, Soul to Soul's manager's manager, a guy called Danny Sims, he owns the original publishing on Bob Marley's product, and we heard about him. Soul to Soul, Jazzy was telling us, he was always, entertaining us to sign with him. And he was saying to us, I've just come back from LA, and he was talking about this godfather figure, Danny Sims, and how instrumental he was in black music in the 60s and 70s, and how he helped push them in America. And then within 2 months, we found ourselves travelling to Meadem, to Cannes, with Danny Sims and Smiley Culture,
right,
to talk to all the labels. So when we were there, we actually had an option to sign to quite a few labels. When you're at that level, we had an option. We could have done Atlantic, we could have done Motown, I think Tim registered, and it was all a bit surreal as well, and like a really strange experience that we had when we were there. We were hanging with Digital Underground, and Tupac was part of Digital Underground.
Of course, yeah.
We're just hanging there, but we knew who Tupac was as just
a dancer,
guy who was dancing.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're like, hey, I wasn't really that crazy about, so obsessed with dancing that I'm gonna have a conversation with him. So I think more the DJ, I probably spoke to, and the Fuse, the MC. I think he was the DJ.
Yeah.
Was it DJ Shock or the other way around? Shock and
Shock
Fuse.
G was one of the MCs.
The other MC, yes. I think Spiky T got on really well with him, so I think we all spoke with the MC and the DJ more than the others. But then when we came back from Cannes, Ron Tom's base was in All Saints Road.
Well, Road.
Yeah, so he just said to us, look, Virgin's just down the road. Tim Reeves has left 10 and he's gone to Virgin. Let's talk to him. So Danny Sims and them, they spoke. And like by March of that year, we had signed to Virgin, and we were just requested to reproduce the album, because a lot of people probably imagine that we made that album for Virgin, but we had actually made the album.
So that was already made for Bad Records.
I wouldn't say it was made for Bad, because by the time Bad put us in the studio, it was like a transitional period, and no one was offering us a good deal, because even Eddie was talking about the pound and £10 equivalent to £1, and these conversations we were having about money, it was like no deal was that good, but the Virgin deal was probably the best deal.
But you had instant success pretty much, didn't you, with sort of like releases? I mean, in regards to what UK hip hop was about, I mean, it never had huge sales, I would have thought,
I became quite ill at one stage. By a year later, I had kind of like an illness that was brought on from stress. I didn't go out quite a lot around that time. I just spent a lot of time working on newer ideas.
Sure.
And we weren't doing too many performances, which was a bit of a frustration. and it was
considering
like,
that's what you were originally all about.
Just like PA stuff, and I didn't really enjoy the PA stuff. It was nice, all the experiences like touring and all that, but
I suppose that early 90s was a time when a lot of other types of music was coming out of Britain as well. You had like the rave culture going on at the same time, and Manchester, you know, everything that was going on around the M25 and stuff. So it must have been very different, even though it was only about 4 years before, or 5 years before what was going on in London. How long did the syndicate sort of last in that sort of guise with Virgin Records?
I remember, like, I don't know if we had it in the UK. So we have the UK, the Euro '92. Was that in the UK? Was that in London?
No, but it was in. This is the one that Denmark won. That's the one we didn't qualify for.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that where everyone was rooting for Ireland?
I just remember like walking from visiting my mum's in Tottenham and then walking back to the station, going to see Don't Ramp, who was still in that living. We were all living in a big house together in West Hampstead, and I remember leaving Tottenham and going through the back parts of Tottenham to Tottenham Hell and being stopped by police and searched, and remembering that period when we were like in a sort of transitional period where we were about to come off Virgin, but we were on like a retainer. And we was on the retainer for a little bit, and I just remember the Euro around that. So it could have been around June, July '92. But what happened was there's a second album that could have come out, and we were going much further, more defined. We knew what we were about.
Right.
But I think lyrically, other than Louise, maybe. Especially like Linny Lynn was quite frustrated, so his lyrics probably would speak of the being critical of the label.
Sure.
But I think like our sound matured, and more than the stuff that was released, I can understand. Like some people would say, "Oh, you were the fathers of." Some people say to me, "Oh, you were the fathers of that sort of drum and bass sort of thing." But for me, I wouldn't have thought it would have been drum and bass, but it was just like, it was more up-tempo beats. And I think we were, it's a shame that, you know, people at the time couldn't observe some of the stuff that we would have done after Simple Jealousy came out. There was, you know, but we still have that stuff anyway. I have that sort of unreleased syndicate stuff that, you know, someone's been talking to me recently, but we're not sure. You know, maybe we think
maybe a nice big box set to go out on record store day or something like that. So, I mean, after that, I'm not saying that obviously you didn't work or anything like that, but obviously, you know, there was, you know, EPs and bits and bobs that sort of came out. So, what happened, sort of like in the later '90s? Because UK hip hop changed crazily in the, you know, became more independent again. It wasn't, you know, that first or second wave of people that were even in the early '90s. It sort of changed.
You were doing a lot on the radio in Paris, didn't you?
That's right. Yeah. Because the same people that brought me to Paris, Nova. And they did a thing they call Cherizé, like somewhere.
This is your life, isn't it? I'd actually presenting this to you at the end.
The same people who did this was the flyers, and that's an image from it. Like, so these were the jams they did, like October '87. I think that was part of the thing. So we're on like Electric Ballroom. Yeah. And on a Friday night, it started at 11, went on till 6, because their things they'd wait until the tube. So like, from doing that until like certain DJs like DJ Max, and there's a guy, what did he call himself? It will come together. But basically, the French, they basically were a bit like, they were getting frustrated that you had a British DJ coming every week and playing. So in the end, because Dynasty originally did it, and he was asking too much money when they revamped it. Right. But Nova went on to, they were like a Kiss FM radio station, then Radio Nova went on to be like what Kiss is now, a big commercial station. Yeah. But I think they've got a bit more integrity with the music than even Kiss does to this day.
Wouldn't be hard, because if you turn on Kiss, it's not exactly what it was in the 80s, is it? Let's face it.
But DJ Luik, he was the person that I had known from when they were a pirate station and they invited us to play. So in the late 90s, and I think of the ages, like I've got a son who's living in Paris now with his grandmother. He's not quite 20, so he's 19. So he was only 1, so that's easily 18 years ago. He around that time the week asked me to do like a radio show on a Friday, which was just like a mix, but he didn't want me to play rap, which I didn't mind, and he said like soul music that you will be playing, I want you to play that. So I had to basically what I did, more than what I'd probably do now, I was just playing a lot of the independent or underground soul that was coming out.
That was coming out at the time.
At the time,
so
and mixing it up and making it
R&B, but a lot of the sort of like
hip
the
hop
British
sensibility.
Sure.
Yeah, and then I'd probably not as far as where you lot have gone with your mixes, but you put like jingles and put little things, on top of it. Yeah.
Okay. So then, what happened?
But yeah, what's funny is like my first child, she's 22 now, so you could say that transitional period. What's interesting is like I always was putting out product, always like from Culture Mark on an independent, and me and Dave, from the 30 years that we've known each other, always been feeding him breaks. I think in the last 5 years I've been more prolific than I had been in the 90s, but in the 90s I used to always constantly feed Dave breakbeat.
Because you had a good EP that came out. Was that at the end of the 90s or was it early 2000s?
Oh, Robots Rebellion.
Yeah.
I
love that.
Yeah, thank you. That was stuff that from the time that so easily when my daughter was a baby, we recorded. Me and Mo Rock, we were going in the studio and working on instrumental products, because Mo Rock, he was a DJ. He was a DJ for Freshly. He had the same sort of awareness as me that both of our MCs, like Noddy and Freshly, no longer were like, it was like they were taking a back seat to MCing. So like, even though Noddy was still out there doing stuff, it seemed like, and Mo Rock, I was living up in Angel then, and Mo Rock is from that area of North London. So we basically, once a week, we'd be in the studio for 12 hours and we just worked on ideas. And then we weren't sure what we were going to do with them. And when I finally decided to do like an album that called Robots Rebellion, some of the instrumental stuff I used was me and his co-production. Then I just wanted to get different MCs.
Because I have to say, I was really excited when that came out, because to me, you know what I mean, there hadn't been anything that was, I mean, obviously with the Syndicate stuff on Virgin, as brilliant as it was, there was a commercial aspect to it with the singing. Obviously it was put out there by Versions, and it did really well, but this seemed to sort of hark back to sort of like a beats and stuff like that. So sort of like going into the noughties, obviously you were still sort of producing and stuff.
We have a pile of...
Yeah, we got a pile of stuff here to play. Tell us a little bit, because obviously over the last 5 years or so, there's been an awful lot of people that have been interested in that early aspect of UK hip hop, which we've obviously talked an awful lot about. But there's it's almost it's just as important as the birth of American hip hop, because the UK thing comes, even though it was gift wrapped and given to us by the Americans. UK hip hop still comes from a sound system culture. It still comes from something like Thatcher's Britain. It comes from which was alien to the US. So tell us a little bit about B-Boy Documents, because there's obviously a lot of things going on in and have been over the last 5 years.
There was a period when my children, me and the mother split after 9/11, and then after a couple of years they were going to go to live in the West Indies for a bit. So I kind of thought I always was putting out independent stuff. I needed to do something. So I went to uni and I thought, okay, I'll go and study sound design, because I always wanted to be an engineer, but I thought got a little bit of qualification in sound engineering, but I thought I actually want to go further. So I kind of found out about this thing called Sonic Arts, and there was a newer course called Sound Arts, which so I went there, and one of the first lectures I had, David Toot, was heading the lecture, and when he spoke to this younger generation, because I was easily the oldest person in my class, and he spoke to this younger generation.
You don't look it.
about you know, his beginnings, you know, even as an author and all that. He was from Rap Attack, and then he went on to write a lot more.
He actually even sort of like produced some records.
That's right.
And
Sleepwalking.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But even I think even before that,
I think you're right with Brian Eno.
Brian Eno, that's right. Yeah.
So it felt like really good to know somebody who had such an impact on hip hop culture in the UK.
Yeah.
I felt at home, like seeing like, okay, I'm in the right place. So being there, I kind of realised like, actually the experiences that I was having in the class and talking to people and being more, because you could say probably I was more of someone who was not really out there communicating a lot. So by my experiences, I realised that I needed to do something that was sort of showing another side to the story. So I had an idea from 2005 to work on what we'd call in sound art a sense of place, like making something that sort of harps back to, you know, gives you an idea of what this thing was. So I made a documentary about Spats, an audio documentary, being that it was sound-based what I was studying. I didn't really want to do like a visual thing, so I thought, okay, I'll do like an audio piece called Description of the Time and Place about Spats. Sure. Which we're about to release. You've got like a white label of it there. And we from doing that in my uni, the professors and teachers there, they got in contact with me afterwards and said to me, there's somebody that's displaying some of your old flyers in the uni in some sort of event that was happening, and that was Mark C. So we got talking and we said, you know, we're definitely going to do something together. And it took us about a year, and then we spoke over the New Year's and we said, okay, let's do this thing. And it was nice because Mark lived up in Kensal Rise, I'm up in Shepherd's Bush.
It's not far.
Yeah, just one road down. So we spoke and we said, look, let's plan to do this thing. No pressure. You've got your responsibilities with your kids. I'm the same. So we'll plan for a year to just work on doing this event, and by the end of the year we should get it together. And that became what we did as B-Boy Documents in 2013. And then from there we've sort of just been on this journey.
And tell us a little bit about the event in 2013.
Basically, we did this event at a place in Kentish Town which I used to record out of. It was a recording studio, and it became a cafeteria, and they used to have art exhibitions in there. So we always looked, and even the audio documentary I made was made over a period of time at the studio there. So they were always wondering, why don't you do something? So even the people that were there and only said, you need to be doing something. So what we did in the end, over the year, we looking at the space, and we spoke to David Toot. So we were fortunate to have David Toot give a talk. He done a talk on what it was like at that time in the late 70s. When we took the time to be speaking about what we wanted to do. Some things we wanted to do we weren't able to do, which were, quite ambitious, but we were able to, having that rapport with David Toot from uni, and he was my advisor when I did my masters, so I sort of won him over because he talked to me about Sleepwalking.
Sure.
Yeah, I recorded, and I said to him, well, actually,
I love that track.
I was part of Family Quest. I DJ'd on their first record and performed with them, so I sort of won him over, and he got to understand where I was coming from, because I think like a lot of people of a certain generation became despondent or dismayed with the way hip hop had gone. The more it became commercial, but he said, look, I trust what you're doing, because he said at the time when he wrote the book, if he had done the talk, he'd be getting shouted down about what he had done. But I said, no, we'll make sure that everything will be all right for you. So we were fortunate, And I think he didn't realise how well received he would be. And it was like, we've got footage of that, and the idea for when we did these events were basically to build on our archive, and it's not something that we're not trying to make like a documentary or even put it up on YouTube. We want to continue doing events like what we're doing in Bushy in December, and bring people together to just communicate like what we are.
Yeah.
And is that at the same place in Bushy again?
Yeah, we'll do it at the same place. Yeah.
And I have to say, to the people who can't see me on the camera, it was fantastic. And I have to say, probably the best selection of tunes I've heard in a very, very long time from a DJ. I was a complete geeking out.
Thank you.
And that's at the Bushy Youth and Community Centre on Falconer Road.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
And what's the exact date in December?
I think it's definitely December the 5th, and it'll be like a community sort of like it is in the community centre, but also we want to do something that harks back to what we would have done. But now we're older, we can actually bring our children as well. So.
Which is what it was like last time, wasn't it? There was a lot of kids. Nice. It was really, really cool. There was little b-boys and b-girls.
It's going to be free.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll just be a donation to Great Ormond Street again.
Yeah.
Something like that. But it'll be free. And we'll try and have a few more activities this time as well.
That's a castle. That's that sort of thing. Tombola. And last week there was the B-Boy documents thing down in Brixton.
We submitted through thanks to Ty. He said to us, look, why don't you submit Twilight Firm's documentary that was made by Devastate, DJ Devastate and Ray. Why don't you submit that documentary into PhD Festival? And we submitted it and they accepted it, and then Gary Devastate told them about how we had premiered it at our exhibition in 2013. So they got to understand more about what we were doing, and they said, look, we want you to actually exhibit as part of the exhibition as well, the weekend exhibition. So we were like, brilliant. So we were able for one day to exhibit at the Black Cultural Archive Centre. And it's a place that I've been, and I've always thought to myself, like, I'd love to exhibit here. So we had an opportunity upstairs, and it was well received. So we're hoping something will come of it.
I'm sure it will. So what's next in the pipeline?
Well, with the B-Boy documents, we're trying to push the brand a bit more. We feel like we haven't, maybe people haven't understood enough what the brand is about. But generally, the idea came about with me and Mark, being that we see certain people are not spoken about enough. We kind of look at it like the usual suspects are always
lost in the history of time, and that's kind of why we like having these these chats, because there's always people that aren't mentioned, and they're usually the ones who were the pioneers at the time, but then other people become to the forefront, and so these names are sort of like missed off the list almost.
And I think like everyone has their people that they're inspired by, and I think you shouldn't be scared to say who's inspired you.
Tom Jones.
My son is going to Jules Holland's show with his school on Tuesday. He said Tom Jones is performing, and I said, really? You've got to get a soundbite. Excellent. You've got to. I don't know if he will be able to. So people like Steve Devon, Mastermind,
of course.
Like a lot of people that we don't really normally talk about. Cool Cash C.
Yeah, also, and the guy that you started DJing with at Spats.
Yeah, people like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And even people that, there's lots of people, like Mark C is a good example. Someone who was a graph artist, but he was actually like someone who made a lot of recordings, like people like Rolo, and he's got a track called London MC that he had made. But, there's lots of people that have made music and not...
Well, that's it. I mean, for every 10 that do well, there's a million that have tried, and, like me and Brad, really.
Just like me.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's about it from us.
That's brilliant.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you ever so much. UK hip hop history right here.
So we play some records.
Nice. Right, so which one's this then? This is Angel of Mercy?
Yeah, basically after a period I decided I wanted to keep the name going.
Sure.
Noddy, he was on a long sabbatical, so I decided to just do production. instrumental stuff. Try and just put more energy into the.
Sure. Oh, so what year was this?
It was produced between 2001 and 2002. Spent about a year producing it. The other guy, Bobby Fabulous.
Bad. Can you still get this?
Maybe not.
Really?
Maybe about
1,000 copies of this, folks. This would be a good B-boy sort of like.
That was, I mean, watching The Matrix 2 and 3 and Fresh as Kids and Kill Bill, that's what inspired this production.
Right.
Then produced them through things.
Right.
The visual imagination of it.
Yeah.
That's what inspired this
It's excellent.
production.
It's really good. Yeah, really good. And next up, we got like a collaboration with. Is this?
Ichioma. Basically, Ichioma, we met her and we wanted to push her as well to do a vocal based stuff. Because the co-producer, Bobby Fabulous, we had similar likes, like the two-step. So we wanted to maintain street soul.
Okay.
Syndicate as well.
Cool.
Rather than have her as a featured artist on Syndicate, so we push her by herself.
Sure. Which is kind of
production.
what you should be doing anyway. I suppose if you want to be pushing stuff, you don't stick in the past. You have to push new sort of things.
You said she's from Newcastle?
Yeah, she grew up in Newcastle. Studied art there.
Yeah.
And her father's Nigerian, her mother's English. But what's nice about her is like obviously working with people like Noddy and then trying to work with new MCs. It's difficult to find that caliber. But also we're working with a singer like Louise Francis, it'd be hard. So what I like about Ijeoma is that she reminds me of like a Sade, quintessential English sounding singer.
Yeah.
She writes her lyrics really well and she's got a unique English sound.
And this is an acetate, so
she'd written this.
So has this been released, or is it due to be released?
Yeah, we've done versions. Ijeoma done a version, and then we got Venus. It was like a project where we just gave her the words, and she sang her own melody.
Okay.
In the band, we just hit it down. So it will come.
And you're going to hear it here first.
There we go. So this is Venus, yeah?
Yeah, Syndicate production again, but Ijeoma written, Venus performed.
Sure. Okay. And when was this one made?
We made this in 2003.
Right. So it's taken a little while for it to actually sort of like.
I've had it on acetate since then, but now we're considering maybe just do something with it.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, what I've done with this track, I did a track called Ancient Futures, and I sampled this and made like a different track.
Oh, okay.
So, from a line that she sings.
Sure.
We sat on this for
And we got another track here, which is super rare, and another one as well. Before we're going to go to some B-boy documents business. So let's listen to this one. Is this from around about the same sort of time, or is
this
it?
would have been 2001, 2. Yeah.
Okay, so a bit earlier. But let's go with
No,
this.
actually, it would have been around 2002.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And what one are we going to be playing? Pack Your Shit Up or Stand
It's
Tall?
up to you. You'd
up
recognise.
to you, man.
Yeah, you'd recognise. Play the original version.
Cool.
You'd recognise it. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so there you go.
Try and find one of these.
How many came out?
Maybe 600.
All gone. And this is Stand Tall. by
The
Idea
original
of
mix.
Yeah.
This is a syndicate production.
And like we were discussing earlier, a totally British sound, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think so.
And did you do a lot with her? Or?
Yeah, we're still working.
Yeah?
As we were doing the interview, she was texting me.
Oh, really?
Pushing, yeah.
Hello.
All right.
Yeah, I really would love to see her put an album together.
Yeah.
She's done well.
Does she collaborate with anybody else?
No, she hasn't.
So she's yours solely. Nice. And we got another one here. We've got a white label.
The track you played before, she'd written.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's got a lovely sound, hasn't she?
Yeah.
And she's busy though, yeah? She's still we
Yeah,
don't see her anywhere recently.
we're working on some new stuff. Yeah, hopefully Nothing will be December. We're ready to go with it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I suppose you're busy with the B-boy document stuff.
Yeah.
Only sort of, yeah. Well, let's listen to one more anyway.
This is another single that we released maybe 2007.
You know what the old saying is?
Another track by Giam and my man said, which are more, in the same vein, streets.
Yeah. And so is there going to be an album?
We're hoping actually, because I'd love to see her do that. But we're working on another 7 that we'll put out. No expectation, just say we're just pushing out.
If it happens, it happens, sort of thing. Yeah.
There will be a 7. There will be a 7 in the new year.
Cool. So now I'm very excited about the stuff coming up next. There's
Talking of sevens.
Talking of sevens. This hasn't been released yet, but this B-boy documents 7. And who's on this?
It's called Cash C. He was like we always play together live. As part of
Unofficial syndicate member.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Him and Noddy always performed together, but he never really wanted to get involved.
And this is going to be released as a 7, or is it? Yeah,
it's a 7. Yeah.
And then after that, we've got some serious history. So a live performance with Spats in what, 85?
Yeah,
85. So we've got some good hip hop history coming right up. Let's go with Cool Cash C first. Lovely. That's a funkadelic bloke, isn't it?
Yeah. You want to turn it up a bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
unreleased from 92.
Yeah, 92, 93.
Cool.
Yeah.
and you're bringing this out.
Yeah, this is more of what the idea of the B-Boy documents was to showcase people that have been written out in the history, so we thought kind of push it a bit further. We realised a lot of the people we were talking to had unreleased stuff.
Sure.
So this is just like the beginning of a few ideas.
Yeah.
Including fresh email writer stuff coming from
And is that going to be sort of like linked to sort of like syndicate stuff, or is it just stuff that they're independently doing as well?
Yeah, we might consider like Crazy Murder, especially putting out some of this stuff like him. But we don't. For me personally, as B-Boy documents, we want to focus on people that other than myself that have been written out. I'm not saying I've been written out of history, but people that aren't normally spoken.
Of course.
I think Cash, Cool Cash, had a big impact on the UK MC scene, but maybe a lot of the younger generation
would never hear about it, which is important. So then to get down to the B-Boy documents, sort of like jams and things that you're putting on.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, next up we've got this, and this is a live performance in Spats, 1985. UK hip hop history right here.
There we go.
So if you ever wondered what was going on in Spats in 1985, this
is it. So as you were saying in the interview, it's fascinating because this starts out as part of your PhD.
Yeah, not PhD.
Masters.
I went to Masters. I wanted to go, but the funding, I didn't think I could get funding.
Professor Fingers.
Yeah,
Right.
Professor Fingers, hopefully. But yeah, as a degree, I did like a documentary, like an audio documentary, and interviewed a lot of people about their memories of Spats and incorporated it into an interview. And what you're playing now is the B-side, which is like a...
It's brilliant. I mean, it's actually faultless cutting in regards. I mean, 1985. You know, let's face it, hip hop hadn't been in this country for that long, and you know, that's what I'm like now.
I was 13.
Yeah, bad.
Thank you.
And who's the MC at the moment?
That's Dirty Harry. We were just about to introduce a breakdance competition because that was the main reason why people went to Spats. But then while we were doing that, Harry, what you hear on this recording, Harry remixing Cool Castle.
Right.
Rocking.
I'd love to play all of it, but it looks like it's quite long.
Yeah, 18 minutes.
You'll be able to get one of these as well.
Yeah.
So when are these going to be pressed?
We're launching it at the B-Boy Documents
in December.
That we're all going to play at in December the 5th. And then after that day, we'll hopefully be available and in your store.
Yeah, I'll be stocking it. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
South Arrow Market, opposite South Arrow.
Because you need this. You need this.
But come down this December the 5th in Bushy at the at the Bushy Youth and Community Centre. It's free.
There you go.
Wow. It's a good cause. Come and work some money towards Great Open Street.
That's right. I'll be playing a few records as well.
And bring your kids.
Yeah, bring your kids. All more than welcome. Cool. Brilliant. No, this is fantastic. I've got to say a massive thank you for coming in.